It's Thursday, August the 29th, 2024, and in an exclusive interview, Dana Bash sat down with your vice president for a CNN exclusive. And this is the first interview that the vice president has had to have. And we've been looking for her to explain a little bit more about what her policies are and what she's going to do about policy. I'm not sure if that's what we got out of this interview, but you know what? In the interest of letting you form your own opinion, let's just take a look at some of the interview. Let's key it up here.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
All right, let's just stop it there. No, let's stop it there. Let's just ask a question. Once again, the vice president was asked a clear-cut question about her values. It appears she kind of reverted back toward the overall safety net that she's been utilizing through this whole entire campaign. She goes back to that she's a prosecutor, that she's prosecuted, people that traffic illegal guns and drugs, including humans across the border when she was in California. But our question still remains, what did she do about illegal crossings over the last 3 years? That's what's puzzling me. It's like anything else. You can always say what you did at the other job, but what does that have to do with what you did at the current job? Again, that was a very clear-cut question by Dana, which is a little bit softball, but it was clear-cut. I don't know if the vice president hit that one out of the park. You know what? Let's revert to another one. Let's see what she has to say about leadership. Let's see what's going on there.
I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And 2, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz for president of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years.
I just have to interject there. Let me just stop for a minute. We'll go back to what Dana has to say. I'm just a little confused. She said a new step forward and a clear path from what has happened the last decade. Well, if we look at the last decade, she is part of the last decade. And you know what? Be it you happy with her performance in Washington or you're not, I don't really know. It's not my job to say what you should think. But, in my opinion, I would look at, the last 10 years would comfort her administration. And there's some things that's going on right now. Food, gas, inflation, property taxes, interest rates. We can go on and on. If we're talking about, turning the page and going a step forward, she is part of the pages. Is that what we should be talking about? Putting her back in the book? I don't know. Let's just listen to the rest of the interview. I'm sorry.
Talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped, I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down. instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up.
Okay, again, I'm going to have to kind of differ with her there. She said the strength of a leader is measured by not by who you beat down, but who you lift up. There's plenty of records out there, do an internet search, however you want to, discover this information of her almost to the form of holding down other African Americans when she was in charge of the prosecutor's office in California. There's a lot of say so, and there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of opinions, but most of it kind of formed against her enforcing marijuana laws against African Americans, keeping them locked up. There's a whole big to do about the lab back then and some of the people that was working. There's one in particular person, I forgot her name, but she was working inside the labs at the time. There was false positives that was coming back that was put before the courts. There was almost, I think, 200 people at one time that was almost released from their charges, but the judge decided to go ahead and let the cases go before the actual presiding judges. But she did kind of ream a new one for the prosecutor's office at that time, and the vice president was the person in charge of that office at the time. So I kind of I don't know. Let's just talk about the next topic. She did talk a little bit about fracking. Let's see what she had to say about fracking.
In Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020.
Okay, hold on. I know some of us may have been up under a rock, but we have heard her definitely come out against fracking since 2020. I mean, do an internet search, people, use Google. We know she has been against fracking for a very long time. That seems to be sort of kind of like a flip on the topic there. And, these are some of the things that are worrying some of our American people about the vice president. Where is she actually standing? Is she for fracking? Against fracking? Is she for the border? Against the border? She talks about new leadership, but she was part of the old leadership. These things are just not clear. Let's see what else she had to say.
That I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
Okay, well, there you heard it directly out of her, her speech here during the interview, that she will not ban fracking. It's been very clear to the vice president, who is going through the election now to hold the Oval Office, stated that she would not ban fracking. She's clearly saying that she's for it, and therefore that I guess that's what she's going to utilize. It goes directly against what she's been saying throughout the majority of her career. But hey, I mean, I guess different strokes for different folks. Let's see what she talks. Let's talk about the border now. Let's see what she has to say about the border. Let's key that up.
And there was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Okay, now that's a big one. We have to talk about that one. That's a large one. There's plenty of video footage out there, sound bites and everything about the vice president clearly saying that crossing the border should be decriminalized. I've seen it. You've seen it. We've all seen it. You've seen her pledge that they should be able to be allowed to cross the border without any penalties. They should be able to get health care. They should be able to get housing. You've seen it. So this again is another a whole 360, I would say. She went all the way around and all the way back, but this time when she stopped, she had a different opinion. her different opinion was is that now she says that it should be enforced. Well, I don't understand. How can you stand on both pillars? How can you say it should be enforced, but they shouldn't be criminalized for it? Notice right here, she said it should be decriminalized. Our laws should be enforced. But I don't know if that's the position she has taken over the last 3 years. So what assures us now as the American people that right now, in this moment, she really believes that, and that's where she wholeheartedly wants to like steer the country in that direction. I'm a little confused. This again is some of the things that African Americans, like myself and others, are a little bit confused on. What's her position? Where she's standing on policy. You know, Coming up, they say that your word is all you have, and you stand on your word. You can't flip it. You can't flip it back and forth. And I know, I'm not going to say that people cannot learn. They can't evolve. They can't change. But it's kind of a little strange. She was just running for the president in the last election. She hadn't changed. There's been nothing no type of enforcement or anything that they've done at the border that showed she changed. But now that she's running for the Oval Office, changes come. I don't know, American people. It makes you a little, curious as to where she may be coming from. But again, you form your opinion. Let's see the last thing she has to say about the border.
And our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again? I just want to
Not
ask
only
about.
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
Okay, let's stop right there. There's a lot that the vice president said right there. First of all, there has to be some truth put out there. And, I'm not saying that she's being deceitful. I'm just saying that there are a lot of other stories and articles out there and proof that the reason why that bill did not go forward had nothing to do with former President Trump and him persuading people not to sign it. Each individual person in Congress makes their own opinion. But that bill did not go through because the bill was padded with so many other different things, including funds to go to Ukraine. Now, to my understanding, the Republican Party was opposed with the bill, and they was kind of on board until they kind of read all the fluff that was in the bill. As you know how Congress works today, there's never, okay, I'm not going to say never, hardly ever a bill that is a single bill that's put forth. What they normally do is they do a bill like the border, and then they'll add several other small things to that bill, and then they'll try to push it through. And once, one party say, hey, wait a minute, that's not what we talked about, and it doesn't get pushed through, then they try to point the finger and say, hey, it's their fault over there, it didn't go through. It's not their fault. It's because the bill was not proposed and sent through the proper way so it could actually pass. What it is a lot of stuff was pushed in it. They call it pork in Congress. They pushed a lot of pork in it to try to slide it on through because here's the big topic, the border. And you all said you want something to do with the border, but we also want this, 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 and this. So they pad the bill and they try to push it forward. Well, the Republican Party just said, no, we're not for it. We're not going to do it. And now all of a sudden, instead of, the vice president and that administration, maybe the Democrats, we'll just use that term because they are the Democrats. Instead of them just living up to saying, hey, we didn't do anything for 3 years of the administration about the border crisis. We pushed a bill together and it didn't get through because we didn't get our way by adding all the extra money that you were sending over to Ukraine, and there were other places that money was going, but there was a large amount going to Ukraine. And we understand, there's some things going on in Ukraine, and I feel for the people there, and I feel for what they're going through, because country, no countryman should have to go through what they're going through. But at the same time, that does not negate the problems that we have here in the United States of America. We have homeless people. We have homeless teenagers. I didn't even notice until a couple of years ago that there are actual teenagers who does not have a home, who goes to high school every single day. You know, that's money that could have been utilized here. We have neighborhoods that have been in a depleted nature for umpteen years. Now, Inglewood, you have Roseland, those areas, we could have used that money. That money could have been allocated towards some of the bigger cities, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Philadelphia, that need the money. There's people in poverty here. And that's all we're saying is maybe the money would have been better spent here than to be padded in a bill like pork, because that's what they call it, and sent over to another country. So by far, that is not, it didn't happen that Trump waved a magic wand and he told everybody not to vote the bill, and they just did not. That's not what happened. What did happen is the bill was padded with so much that the Republicans could not, in good faith, send it forward, because it was sending money out of the country, which could have been money that could have been back into the citizens here in the United States pockets. So overall, I think this interview, if I had to use a scale and add it up, I would say that maybe it was a 5. I don't see that she gained any ground with this interview. I don't see that there may be any voters that were like kind of on the tilt, or like swaying back and forth and said, because of this here interview, yeah, most definitely I'm going to vote for the vice president. I kind of see it as an informational piece. It didn't really give us what we really needed. We really need hard ideas, a hard roadmap as to what is going to happen in our country if we elect you president. I want to know, if I elect you president, what are you going to do? How we're going to fix it? You know what? Before we leave, there's one more topic that she covered, and it was food. And I was waiting for this one because that's the one that everyone, whether you young, old, tall or short, green or blue, we all eat food. Let's see what the president had. I'm sorry, the vice president. Apologize. Let's see what she had to say about that topic.
Your campaign themes is "We're not going back." But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. Literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it.
Okay, here we go again. There was a lot the vice president said, but let's just cut it down. First of all, inflation is not below 3%. We know this. We watch TV every single day. We do know that. And again, when they obtained the White House, inflation, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was at like 2.4%. So it was the lowest it had been in about 40 years. On top of that, our interest rates on a house were about in the 3 point, they've doubled now. I'm not understanding, I'm not really sure as how she can blame, because she put blame of something that the former president did 3 years ago, as that's still a factor today. If you remember, food prices have steadily increased over the last 2 years. That has nothing to do with the Trump administration. So I'm not understanding how How would you blame that on someone who left office 3 years ago? I mean, if you were at work tomorrow and your boss came by and they say, "Oh, well, why didn't you finish your work?" You can't say because the person who worked there 3 years ago messed up the copier, and so since the copier was messed up, I just didn't finish my work. No, you can't say that. You had a responsibility to take care of what was going on today for the American people. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we just listened to what, in my opinion, would be just an excuse. But there was no ideology of how we're going to go forward and lower food prices. What we're looking for as American people, and if you want our vote, you need to tell us what you're going to do, clearly what you're going to do. Are you going to give money to farmers so they can produce more food? Are we going to buy at a lower price, soybean oil, soybeans, I'm sorry, not oil, soybean? Or are we going to export some kind of product? Are we going to put tariffs on some things? I mean, I don't know what the plan is. Again, I don't work in the White House, and it's not my job to figure out how to lower the price of food, but it is my job to pay attention to what a person proposes to me on lowering that price of that food. And right now, I listened and I did not hear her saying anything that's going to lower the price of eggs, anything that's going to lower the price of bread, anything that's going to lower the price of chicken breasts. I didn't hear it. Did you? Maybe I'm wrong. Again, here at Motivational Cup, we like to make these videos so therefore you can get information so you can make your own opinion. We want to motivate the mind to think in a way that it's 100% for you and your family. Like in the raw, no band-aids. You heard it just like I did. You form your opinion. I know what mine is already. I would share if you ask, put it in the comments, please. And I ask that you like, subscribe, and comment to our channel. Share it with people. We're trying to grow this channel to make it huge. If you go ahead on and subscribe to this channel, we can make it larger and I can bring you more videos just like this one. Until then, you and your family stay safe and pay attention. We'll be back with another video for Motivational Cup in the near future.